Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 98th episode of Wednesdays for Waste Warriors. And we are extremely happy and proud to have Harshad Barde with us from SWaCH Cooperative in Pune, which is a role model institute for helping, working, guiding the community of, uh, let's say, waste pickers, safai mitra, safai saheli, whichever word you want to call it. Um, it was my long time dream कि मैं हर्षद को invite करूं. And last year on Environment Day, we had Sarika from SWaCH, who was on Wednesdays for Waste Warriors. And she really shared a very heartfelt um, kind of experience and story from her perspective. And it really makes a lot of sense because हम कैसे बिना किसी के, जब हम बोलते हैं ना पुट योर सेल्फ इन समबडीज शूज, हम बिना किसी के शूज में अपना पैर धरे किसी को ऑलरेडी किसी के बारे में सोचने लगते हैं. सो दैट वाज अ वेरी हम्बलिंग एक्सपीरियंस एंड लवली एपिसोड. एंड welcome, Harshad. I'm so happy. Welcome to Wednesdays of Waste Warriors. And I would like to hear from you. Who is Harshad and why does he do what he does? Why did he choose to do this?
So the abridged version of that is that I am your typical privileged middle class Pune boy. There's really nothing special or different about me other than the privilege, of course. I've done my educational training in law. And after I completed my master's in law, I'd worked for a few years in copyrights and trademarks and copyrights. And I was interning with the Kagat Kach Patra Kashtakari Panchayat, the trade union of waste, because my intention was to intern for 2 months, get it on my CV, apply for an MBA abroad, live the good life that my peers were planning to do at that time. And those 2 months of internship have now turned into 14 years. But
Wow.
I've fallen into that pit and I couldn't get out. So why I do is because it's enjoyable, it's highly satisfying. I have drawn my entire life's inspiration and motivation from the waste pickers that I work with, their resilience, their sheer hard work, and the lives that they live are so distinct from anything that I have ever seen that it brings me satisfaction that I'm able to serve them a little bit, and in turn also be able to service the city and perhaps the environment indirectly through that or directly through that also. But yeah, that's about it.
It's amazing that an internship that charted your career path in a different way altogether. But I'm sure the law degree helps now, even now, for helping these people, because बहुत सारे सवाल, बहुत सारे rights and on humanity, like humane, जो हम एक right for dignity and respect मांगते हैं, वो ही जो बेसिक्स ABC से शुरू करना होता है. So there's a lot that you all must be doing. So 14 years is like उतना टाइम राम को वनवास का मिला था, तो इट्स लाइक अ लॉन्ग टाइम. आपने बहुत करा है. आप बताइए कि शुरुआत में जब आपने लॉ छोड़ के और अपना MBA ड्रीम छोड़ के एंड ऑल दैट छोड़ के ये ज्वाइन किया, तो आपको सबने क्या कहा, इंक्लूडिंग मे बी योर फैमिली, योर फ्रेंड्स एंड अदर्स, जिनने बोला अरे ये क्या कर रहा है? Something like that happened?
I think for the first 4 or 5 years, people just thought, हाँ कुछ तो time pass कर रहा है, like कर रहा है जो भी उसका मन में है करके. And then at some point of time, people seriously started asking, so what next? What's going on? But I think within the first 3 or 4 years, I left that answer behind. All through my 7 years of law, 2, 3 years of working, that thought was always, "Acha, what am I doing? What do I do with my life?" That question was there every weekend, if not during the week when you're working. But I think after 2, 3 years of working with waste, because that question got eliminated, and those were, I think, around me noticed that and have stopped asking, either out of respect or out of like, और कुछ हो नहीं सकता है तो छोड़ दो.
That's good. That's good. So, आपने on a personal level, as you started working, you did not have any background of working with this community. What do you think
Hmm.
someone who had no idea about their life, or you were not coming from that background, और आपको कुछ पता नहीं
Hmm.
था और आपने फिर भी कुछ कर पाए, आपको वो satisfaction है, so there must be a lot of learning, unlearning. What was that? Could you please share a little about that?
So I suppose the biggest learnings were being able to see and acknowledge at a personal level, being able to see and acknowledge my own privileges. I spoke English. I had an education. There was electricity in my house. I had a house. I had a bike. I could fill fuel. Some of the most basic things that I took for granted all my life, in terms of both my class, my caste, as well as my gender, were things that were completely demolished because I thought मैंने merit मैंने पढ़ाई किया है, like I've done this on my merit, on my work. But then I observe, like anyone else who works in the development sector, once you get out of your comfort zone and you see what kind of conditions people are living in, what amount of decades and hundreds of years of deprivation and marginalization, what it truly means. Once you see that, you kind of, I think, become much more satisfied in life, because I have everything that any waste picker in the world can ever ask for, and I'm still cribbing about something. My Netflix subscription is down, whatever. And these questions just seem irrelevant.
Yes.
I think that was a big shift for me, to just know that I have everything, and abhi kya, or there's nothing else more to achieve. I get a bigger car, a bigger house, but all of those things seem quite irrelevant. And the other thing is that I think my lens changed. I, like everyone else, did not see waste pickers. I just didn't see them. I didn't see them as someone who existed. And that has now shifted. I see the waste first, then the waste picker, and then everyone else on the street. So that shift is not only because of working with them, but also knowing what contribution is actually going on. And what we see is not what is happening. So you see the waste on the street and you see the waste picker in the waste, but that's not what's happening. She is the one who's actually removing stuff that everyone else has thrown away and recycling it for us. And so that shift of lens of what, not only waste pickers, but what women are also, informal sector women are doing in this country. One small example, and I'll stop. My mother was always my mother, but now she's a homemaker for me, because she's also an undocumented worker at home who's not paid for the work that she does. Is a big shift in my lens.
True. We take everything for granted because we get everything served on a plate. Some people on steel plates, some on silver, but that 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 shattering happens, and you feel like, oh, I see now. Oh, that oh thing happens, and so
Yeah.
I'm really happy and very touched that you experience that, because it's very humbling. I haven't been working in this for many years, but even in this 4 years, I just see, and it just overwhelms me sometimes the way people are treated and not treated fair. So you're doing amazing. We The topic is to talk and discuss about the organic in situ organic waste management that you do. But before we get into that, um, there's one more question that I have about, mostly, or most of the women are in this, and some of them
Mm.
are like this, like a second, third generation. And people just look at them ki, अरे ये तो that उस उस लेवल पे है कि हमें उनके साथ इंटरेक्ट करने की भी जरूरत नहीं, इनको सिर्फ इनका काम करना है, कचरा उठाओ और जाओ, दैट्स इट.
Mm.
व्हाट इज आई रियली फील दैट हमें उसको चेंज करना है, उस एटीट्यूड को चेंज करना है. व्हाट मोर नीड्स टू बी डन देयर, बिकॉज दैट्स समथिंग दैट रियली disturbs me a lot. I want to make that happen.
So it's tricky. We're talking about shifting society's lenses. We're talking about how do you bring empathy into your day-to-day interactions with the world and the universe. And more often than not, we are more concerned about the traffic jam on Paneer Road, than looking at, ठीक है यार, मेरा गाड़ी, my bike, my car is getting messed in the potholes there. But we spare a moment for the people who have to also cross that road, walk that road, because they can't afford a vehicle in any way? What more needs to be done? I believe, maybe foolishly, that most people are good. Basic levels of good exists in humanity. If they have the right amount of information, and the right amount of knowledge of who is doing what and in what way they are contributing to, maybe selfishly, their own individual's well-being, people change the lenses that they wear, whatever their age, whatever their demographics. But empathy can't come without information and knowledge, uh, and repetition also, perhaps. But I think that's the big shift that we need to do. And it's sure, I will talk about waste pickers, but it's also about our domestic workers. It's also about street vendors. It's also about home-based workers and the millions and millions that we don't see who actually make our lives possible. Um, it's about acknowledging that where this is coming from, and then maybe doing a little bit. If don't do monetary, don't do time, money, energy, but even mentally, if you make the effort to shift towards acknowledging the contribution of the informal sector to our economy, 82%, we would suddenly be aware of what we have and what we could do to support others.
Yeah, amazing. 82% is like huge. And if you don't even acknowledge and kind of say, yes, there is a huge, we call it informal sector. But just imagine if that informal becomes a formal, and what massive change can come in. All
Yeah, I agree.
just amazing. What a wild thought that is. So uh, uh, let's talk about the organic waste management, because that's a pain in the pain in the kind of bone and every other part of the city, and not only Pune, in most of the cities.
Yeah,
Some have done
sure.
a good job, but we see
Yes.
in our city कि हर जगह पड़ा हुआ है कूड़ा, एंड उसमें मक्खियां लगी है, उसे कुत्ते खा रहे हैं, लाइक वी जस्ट सी दैट, एंड bulk waste generators are often that contributors and polluters, despite all sort of guidelines and penalties and जो भी कुछ है. सो आप लोगों ने कैसे इसको सॉल्व करने का या अप्रोच करने का सोचा, और हाउ इज इट वर्किंग आउट?
Okay, so I will deviate a little bit, give
Sure.
a little information about the informal waste picking sector, and then come back to this. So, in all of our cities, there are waste pickers who are collecting, sorting, selling dry recyclable materials wherever they find them. They may be at your doorstep because they're collecting from you. It might be on the street side, out of containers, landfill areas, transfer stations, on top of municipal vehicles. Wherever they can find it, they're taking it out and they're sending it for recycling. And most government and academic analysis shows that a large part of the recycling in a country like India is happening through the informal sector, which includes waste pickers, but also the next step, the scrap shops, the aggregators, the wholesalers, so on and so forth. Um, Not only that, that the that the percentage of recycling that happens in India is actually far higher than most other countries. So Singapore, Hong Kong, gorgeous streets, very clean, recycling rates of, say, plastic of 5%, 6%. Same with the US, about 5%. Europe fares a little better, uh, but they fare a little better because they cheat. They call waste to energy as also recycling many a times, not always. So when you get into the details of it, there is a there is a huge amount of recycling that happens in India. It doesn't necessarily happen in the right way. It doesn't necessarily look very good, and it does not necessarily fit all the environmental and labor norms that should be there. And the question that one needs to ask is, do you upgrade this sector, which employs around, so this is an estimated 50 lakh waste pickers across the country. So do you upgrade this sector by providing them better, more dignified, sustainable livelihoods, or do you replace them with companies that are going to bring in large mechanized systems, reduce the number of total livelihoods available, and also not necessarily improve the environmental outcomes? Streets may be cleaner, but not the environmental outcomes. Most waste pickers in Maharashtra, a large number of waste pickers are women. The demographics do shift. If you go to the north, there are more men than women, say 60-40. But in Maharashtra, it's almost 65% women, 35% men, all of them from SC or SG or other marginalized backgrounds, almost illiterate to the last 20 people, maybe. And obviously are doing this not necessarily out of choice. It is not considered as a dignified occupation by most people who see it, but if you calculate the contribution and the outcomes of their work, it is more dignified than most other formal occupations that we see out there. This sector is has always been, from the day that you start counting, has always been reduced and externalized and marginalized more and more. As our cities get clean, as more mechanized systems come in, more formal systems come in, the informal sector keeps getting pushed out. Everyone talks about PET bottles, but not about the low value plastics. But PET bottles are one of the mainstays of waste pickers. So this keeps happening as we transition towards cleaner cities, more investments. They are not flowing to the people who are actually doing the work. And as they get removed, the amount of waste in the street may change, but the amount of recycling keeps going down. And that's Singapore versus India. Um, in Pune, there is a slightly different approach that the city has taken. And by the city, I mean truly the city, the administrators of the city, consecutive municipal commissioners, elected representatives, lakhs and lakhs of citizens, and thousands of waste pickers, where the same people who were on the streets are now collecting waste from the doorsteps. It's been a long transition, 10 years worth of transition, where there's identification of waste pickers, training of waste pickers, bringing them from a position where they're only companions at work are pigs and dogs, to talking to an upper middle class gentleman who has no idea of what he's dealing with, and then convincing them to segregate their waste at source, which they don't want to do or don't know that they're supposed to do. And then convincing them to pay money at the end of the month also, a user fee, like you pay your paper wala, doodh wala. So that transition has been for like about, I mean, it's 18 years now, but I would say the first 10 years is what it took to actually set the system properly in partnership with the PMC. And today there are about 4,000 waste pickers collecting from 10 lakh properties. Um, what's interesting is that after, and most of this work is non-motorized, it's pushcart based. It ensures very high number of livelihoods. And also a very slow moving doorstep collection system. I live on the sixth floor. The waste picker comes to my doorstep. She doesn't come to the gate of the society, although there are societies where that also happens. And if I lived in a slum, the waste picker would come to my juggi in the corner of the slum as well, as long as there's access. So this kind of makes sure that you're able to you can see the person who's giving you the waste. And you can slowly convince them, or at least a majority of them, to segregate at source without external IC, without heavy investment, or even without fines. Um, as it is, that there are waste pickers who've been integrated, their mainstay till now has been dry waste. So they remove whatever they can sell, whatever the scrap shop is buying, they will remove all of that from our doorsteps and send it into recycling. Pune's recycling average is about 35% for dry waste. The country average is about 12%. Pune's plastic recycling is 37%. The country's average is about 14 to 16%. So we are anywhere between 3 to 3 plus times more than most cities in the country, because the person who's collecting your waste is your recycler. It's not going 40 kilometers away into a plant after which it will be reduced, it will be removed. There are many issues with it. I'm not going to get into that right now, but this has been the journey generally of getting waste pickers to transition to start collecting from the doorstep. And then when we started looking at the waste itself, um, when you look at city reports, they say 50% dry, 50% wet, or 60% wet, 40% dry. But when you look at the waste coming out of our households, almost irrespective of your income levels, in Pune, 76% of household waste is organic waste. So waste pickers are working on the balance 24%, and 35% of that is going for recycling. But then what about the 76% that's coming out? So we noticed that there were citizens and societies who wanted to do composting, and there were waste pickers who started doing it on their own. We had no idea as
Yeah.
an organization. They just started doing it. And based on that, based on waste pickers saying this is good, yeah, like we can do work, we can get money in the same place that we are collecting. We're taking out the dry waste. We can manage the wet waste also right where it's being generated. From there, over the last 6, 7 years, we've been working for longer, but in the last 6, 7 years, we've really paid attention to it. We've reached a place where about 175 waste pickers are composting in 290 societies across the city, societies, institutions, companies, whatever. And about 21 tons of waste is managed at source. So you have multiple premises now where there is an SRA on Singagarh Road, where there's 260 households. There's a waste picker who goes to the doorstep. They are paid by, and SRA are basically they're slum dwellers who've shifted into a building now. They're getting a doorstep collection service for which they pay the waste picker. Their waste is segregated. The dry waste is removed by the waste pickers and stored in these small cages that the SRA has permitted them to keep. And so they recycle 35% of the dry waste. And they also manage the composting pits over there, which is about, because it's an SRA, about 80% of their waste. So you have a slum, a vertical slum, which is managing about 85% of their waste at source, and only 15% is being handed over to the PMC. And so there are 290 such locations, about 26, 27,000 households. And it's a win-win-win. The waste picker is getting additional employment at a place where she's already working. With that employment, of course, comes money. The citizens are getting a better service. The citizens are being able to comply with the regulations that require in-situ composting and bulk waste generators. The city is winning because 85% of the waste is not coming to them. Um, the environment is winning because organic waste is the largest contributor to greenhouse gas. Plastic may contribute to pollution, but organic waste contributes to climate change. So global warming is directly impacted. And now, if this is a model that one can replicate as much as possible, not limiting ourselves to the bar that is set by legislation, but really going forward and saying sab ne karo, sub society mein karo, you might be in a situation where a large amount of organic waste is managed at source, climate change mitigation at the highest possible levels, very high levels of employment generation for the informal sector workers who may not just be waste pickers. There may be other informal urban poor workers also who could be integrated into it, and a city that has lesser waste to manage. And so they can do their resource allocations better. So that's the broad idea, and this is where we are now.
Wow, Harshad, this is amazing. थोड़ी बातें इसमें से तो मुझे भी नहीं पता थी, बट सुन के इतना अच्छा लग रहा है कि हम जो हमेशा डरते हैं कि ओ माय गॉड द वेट वेस्ट और द ऑर्गेनिक वेस्ट ये लोग गाड़ी में लेके जा रहे हैं और कहाँ पे ले जा रहे हैं, कहाँ पे फेंक रहे हैं. देन वी हैव लाइक पाषाण के पास में वी हैव अ सोसाइटी जहाँ पे they last month they had this protest and they've gone to
Yeah,
court, so
yeah,
many of those residents have spoken to me and I have kind of shared their problems with others कि देखो that smell के कारण वो खिड़की नहीं खो like
yeah,
this.
yeah.
And in the name of wet waste management, it's definitely a polluting activity. एंड
Mm.
हम हमेशा एक बेंचमार्क रखते हैं, सबको बोलते हैं जब हम लोग सेशंस करते हैं या इवन स्कूल में बच्चों को सिखाने जाते हैं कि अ, अगर आपने कंपोस्ट कर रहे हो तो वो करेक्ट तरीके से हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा है, उसका सबसे पहला साइन है कि उसमें से स्मेल नहीं आएगी. हम ये
Correct.
बोलते हैं, राइट? तो
Yeah.
इसका मतलब है अगर इतनी बुरी दुर्गंध आ रही है कि लोग वहां पे उनकी तबीयत खराब हो रही है एंड दे आर लाइक जस्ट नॉट एबल टू लिव देयर, सो समथिंग इज नॉट राइट.
So I'll also talk about something you mentioned before, if you don't mind. कि हम रास्ते पे कचरा देखते हैं और उसके बारे में क्या सोचते हैं. But to this point first, I fully empathize with the citizens in that area and in any area where this kind of smell is coming, whether it's a landfill or a transfer station or a mid-processing plant or an actual composting biogas unit. Once you put so much waste together now,
Yeah.
you do whatever you do it at any level, any high grade of quality you want to. If you're staying next to it, it's going to smell. It is always going to smell. And if you don't do it properly, it's going to smell even more. And if there's anaerobic conditions, it will smell even more. And if there's leachate formation and then absorption into the soil, it'll smell. So it just keeps getting worse and worse. And so I completely empathize with the position of the citizens who are suffering from it. But and don't take this as a clap back, right? But I will also ask the same citizens, cool. आप आपके सोसाइटी में जाके देखिए आप कर रहे हैं कि नहीं. Because if you were managing in your society, maybe this plant is irrelevant. We can shut it down, right? So, and of course, it's limited to a certain kind of society, certain size of this thing. And it's unfair to say that the citizen should solve a city level issue. I get that. But since your talks are also called My Waste, My Responsibility, one of the things to do for every citizen anywhere is that there is a regulation in India that requires bulk waste generators to manage organic waste at source. Um, take take that on, right? It's your society, it's your community. Take it on, fight, scream. And नहीं हुआ ठीक से तो ठीक है, but लड़के ठीक करवा लो. Because when the problem in a 300 household society, the problem is still around 260 kgs per day. But you take 20 of those societies and you put them and you take them to a plant which is going to be in your community, it's a 5 ton per day problem. So you do it at source as much as possible. And sure, people can't do it in their flats or their houses. It's a lot of work. I understand that. And kudos to those who are able to do kitchen composting and balcony composting. But it will cost you what, 50, 60 rupees per month to do it at a community level in your building ka parking and your garage or on your terrace. Very low infrastructure costs, very low ops and management costs, and very easy to monitor. So shifting that lens from in somebody else's backyard, unfortunately, it's in these guys' ka backyard, to everyone's backyard. You manage it in everyone's backyard. I always give this example. I don't know if it's right or politically correct, but 150 years ago, having a toilet in your house was seen as a horrible thing to have. And today, it's a mark of your base level of existence, right? Base level of decent existence. Why should we not build that same perspective about organic waste? आज वो अपने घर में करना या बिल्डिंग में करना खराब है, बट कल को that should become the mark of whether you're a responsible citizen or a responsible housing society or not.
I agree. I agree.
About about the pollution in the streets की हम जहाँ पे भी जाते हैं हमको गीला कचरा दिखता है और स्मेल दिखता है. I wouldn't necessarily tie that to composting at source. That's the only point. There are many reasons why waste kind of lands up on the street, and one problem we always kind of one ends up conflating issues of managing waste at source at good waste collection, primary waste collection system versus waste on the street, which could also come from garden waste, from radar construction and demolition waste, from other people littering. You may have the best possible doorstep collection system in your area. You may still end up with street sweeping being kept over there. Or like in Pune, we have no litter bins. So even if I'm on the road, when I'm in the field, I come home with a packet of like, a piece of paper here, a piece of this here, there. So we need to work on those things also. Composting is, I would say, it is better not to conflate waste on the streets and composting at source. Sorry. Yeah.
Why, why I said about that,
Yeah.
because मुझे बहुत सारे ऐसे लोगों से मैं मिली हूँ
Mm.
जिनके बारे में मुझे कंप्लेंट्स मिली है लोग और लोगों से कि उनके घर में जो खाना बना रही है लेडी, वो खाना बनाने के बाद सारा कुछ एक प्लास्टिक की थैली में ले जाती है बाहर, और उसके बाद में जहाँ पे कोई कुछ नहीं देख रहा है ऐसे ऐसे करके वो डाल देती है. सो मैं उनसे ये क्वेश्चन पूछती हूँ, तुम वो करना तुमको ओके लगता है, और उसके बदले
Mm.
में तुम 70-75 रुपए देके किसी को ये नहीं मतलब जो तुम्हारा एक तीन
Mm.
3-4-5 समोसे या 4 वड़ा पाव के बराबर का कॉस्ट है पर मंथ, तुम वो किसी को देके ये नहीं बोल सकते कि आप नियम से मेरे घर से ये लेके जाओ. वो आपने चॉइस बना ली और उसके बाद
Correct.
में आप बोलते हो अरे हर जगह कचरा है, कोई काम ही नहीं कर रहा है, ये क्या है. सो
Yeah.
आप ऐसे भी बोल रहे हो, आप वैसे भी बोल रहे हो. मैं उनकी बात कर रही थी.
Yes. That's the thing.
देयर आर सो मेनी
Yeah. Yeah.
लाइक कंट्रीब्यूटर्स तो बहुत
Mm.
हैं अलग अलग टाइप के, एंड सम आर
Correct.
लाइक anonymous, some are well known.
Yeah.
It
And
happens. Yeah.
sure. And so I think like the conversation on organic waste management at source is perhaps a safer space to be in because I don't know who can object to it. And if the people in the webinar call today would like to object to it, I'd definitely like to hear. But if they're your audience, they probably won't. So okay. But I think it's a conversation that we can all, as citizens of this earth, can have. Um, this is one thing that I make every day. I don't know if I have the ability to reduce it at source, right? You can have better, more responsible consumption, less waste being generated in the kitchen. But we are moving in a direction where people are ordering more.
Yes.
We are moving in a direction where people are cooking for 5 days. Small households, they're cooking for longer. There are refrigerators, you keep it there. Very different from aaj jitna banana hai utna hi khareedte hain. I have never worried about how much vegetables I buy. Whereas my mother, in her day, even today, will be like, I want 250 grams of this and 200 grams of that. And she'll go and buy that from the store. I'll press a button and order a kg of whatever. And then if it goes to waste, then what? So I don't know if we can impact generation, consumption and generation habits. It's critical to do it. But we can definitely, through policy, through agreement, through better, at a city level, better monitoring, independent auditing, setting standards for how it needs to be done, setting standards for the cost at which it should be done, and strict penalties when you don't do it. Standards of how the infrastructure should be, what machines not to use, what machines are okay to use. Setting these guidelines down, um, I think we can achieve a huge impact on waste management in any city. Pune, while having all of its problems, has one of the highest levels of compliance of bulk waste generator management in the country. I'll tell you this in SWaCH सर्वेक्षण, when they give the numbers of, in any city, when they give the numbers of kitna bulk waste generator percentage hota hai, it's always 100%. Because they only show the people who are composting as being bulk waste generators. So हमारे पास 400, like Delhi में 400 society है, and I saw that number and I'm like, yeah, that's obviously that's not true. So forget that kind of compliance. But if you look at a percentage of the total number of bulk waste generators in Pune, we probably fare in the top 3 to 4 numbers all across the country. And that I think is in large part because there has been a system and understanding that segregation is important. Since 2001, I think we have a law where you build a new building, you have to keep space for organic waste separate. So some of these things have helped us to do it a lot. And the fact that you have a slow moving decentralized doorstep waste collection system just allows you to implement the rule very easily. There's no big vehicle that you can just pay 500 rupees to who can just take away your organic waste. So some of these factors have definitely helped us in Pune.
So decentralized is what I would pick because हमने थोड़े समय पहले एक session किया था which was about decentralized solutions and we believe that जब तक हम उसे decentralize नहीं करेंगे, break into smaller pieces for everyone to do it at their community level or society level or maybe the floor level, whichever way, उतना छोटा करना होगा तभी आप उसको पूरे तरीके से, जैसे होता है ना कि सब्जी को बड़ा काटोगे तो जल्दी नहीं पकेगी, छोटा छोटा काटोगे तो पूरा पके।
Correct.
सो वैसा
Correct.
अगर हमें समता से सब कुछ करना है तो वो डिसेंट्रलाइज इज द बेस्ट सोल्यूशन एंड आई थिंक मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल हु जॉइन टुडे दे आर दे आर कंपोस्टिंग एट होम, they believe in decentralized solutions. So हमारे पास आई थिंक ऐसा कोई भी ज्वाइन नहीं हुआ है जो कि हमारा बोलेगा कि नहीं नहीं आई डोंट थिंक दिस इज ओके। सम पीपल मे नॉट बी एबल टू कंपोस्ट बिकॉज या आपको थोड़ा ध्यान देना
Sure.
पड़ता है, लेकिन फिर भी दे आर डूइंग विच एवर वे दे आर डूइंग, चाहे वो बाल्टी में कर रहे हैं या उन्होंने कुछ वो ले लिया है। बट आपने एक चीज जो बोली जो मैं बहुत सारी सोसाइटीज में मैंने देखा है एंड आई वुड लाइक टू, आई नो इट्स नॉट डायरेक्टली रिलेटेड टू व्हाट यू डू बट that needs to be resolved. Many builders are putting this huge composting machines जिसमें कि वो बिल्डिंग वाले सारे कॉन्फिडेंटली एंड प्राउडली कि हम कंपोस्टिंग करते हैं वो सब कुछ
Yeah.
उसमें डालते हैं, फिर उसमें सब कुछ जल के काला हो जाता है और जब वो सब कुछ
Yes.
जल के काला हो जाता है तो वो उसको गार्डन में यूज ही नहीं कर सकते, सो वो उसको
Yes.
सड़क पे फेंक देते हैं। एंड देन आई
Correct.
कॉट देम अगेन एंड अगेन
Yeah.
एंड कि
Yeah.
क्या कर रहे हो आप बार बार, इतनी बड़ी सोसाइटी है। बोलता है कि हमारे गार्डनर ने बोला कि ये कंपोस्ट नहीं है तो हम बाजार से खरीद के ला रहे हैं। तो
Hmm.
जस्ट इमेजिन and why is it happening and what can we make better in this regard? This is something I really want an answer for.
So, you see, it's fairly complex, but you're bang on right that there are 3 or 4 types of machines. You have your basic shredder, which is just cutting the sabzi into smaller bits, which is excellent, no doubts about it. There are some things that you have to be careful about. You can't put a chammach or a coconut in there. So some things you have to be careful about, but it's a perfectly legitimate way of reducing the sizes of organic waste components and increasing the surface area where microbes can attach themselves to it and compost better. There is something called an OWC, which people just apply that name to everything. But an organic waste composter is ideally just a mixing and basic shredding machine. So you add your organic waste, you add either sawdust or cocoa peat or some kind of browns, leaf litter into it, and all the machine does is kind of rotates it for 15 minutes and gives you a nicely mixed mixture. And I think this is also a very legitimate mechanism to have. And then you put it into trays and you compost over them. And then there are 2 other types. Now these are the risky ones. One is something called I don't know what its actual name is. I call it a perpetual rotator machine. So you put your organic waste into it, and it's a big cylinder that just keeps rotating continuously, 24/7. It keeps rotating, rotating, rotating. The idea being that you're turning the waste. It may stop. It may rotate and it may have a batch of every 20 minutes. It will start, stop again. If you were to do that only to mix the waste and then put it into pits or put it into trays, perfectly fine. But if the sales pitch is that you put it into this and then after 15 days you will get the compost out, uh, no, yeah, it's unnatural. There is no technology that's going to be able to do it. You're doing it wrong. And what comes out of it is well mixed but dehydrated waste. Which when it catches moisture, and we live in India, when it catches moisture, it start degrading again. So वो anaerobic हो जाता है. And these machines fail. Very often they fail. I mean, imagine having a continuous rotating drum of like 40 feet wide in your thing, which you're putting half a ton of waste every day. It fails. There's one little thing and it fails. And then there's the monster, which is the 24-hour composting machine, which is a fraud. You put it in, it has a heating element, it reduces the size of it reduces the volume by dehydrating, removing all the air, and then it just gives you a char. And in that char, then they add culture and compost and other things that actually have nutrition and say that yeah, compost hai. That's just a scam. I think it's a fraud. How do you deal with it? One, you ban these. I mean, there's nothing. We have to have, a society who's doing it. Please call the newspaper, put it out there into the public as much as possible that these fail. We are actually trying to document many of these machines where we have worked and we've taken them on as a challenge, and they have just consistently failed. Um, Either because the output is nonsense or because the costs are so ridiculously high that no one can run it. No one can run it. We need policy for this, unfortunately, because the builders will sell what they're allowed to sell and the citizens will buy what they're allowed to buy. And once you tell a resident or a builder कि इसमें से इतना FSI आपका चला जाएगा, if you do the pits, then they're like, no, no, put the machine. That 50 lakh machine is nothing compared to the space that it occupies in urban India. So we need policy to just ban them, nothing else.
यू नो आई एम गोइंग टू डू दैट. अब तक मैं सोच रही थी कि ओ इट जस्ट फील सो हॉरिबल कि कोई आप लोगों को
Yeah.
जानते हो और आप उनके बारे में कर रहे हो, बट मेरे बहुत बार वो मन में आया, अब तो मैं बिल्कुल करने वाली हूँ बिकॉज इट इज
Mm.
रियली नॉट हेल्पिंग, इट्स अ बर्डन. एंड वो लोग भी बेचारे बेवकूफ बने, एंड प्लस दे फील वेरी हैप्पी बिकॉज हमें बिल्डर ने कंपोस्टिंग मशीन लगा के दी है.
Yeah.
ये
Yeah.
उनका
Yeah.
satisfaction है. So they don't have to worry about anything that others are struggling with.
Yeah. So I
So
would definitely say all of these, and this is one of my parents' society also, huh? Just uh, for full disclosure, negotiate with the builder and say तुम ये और कहीं तो लगाओ, है इसका जो scrap value है या इसका जो whatever the value of this is at second hand, you please build us trays and give us an OWC or a shredder, or you put pits on our terrace, or you put pits over here. See, your operational costs will go up in terms of the labor that you apply, but your utility costs will come down substantially. And it is going to be the cheapest, best possible way to manage your waste at source. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck into a system where you either have to perpetually pay off someone to avoid fines or pay fines perpetually. I mean, you're still going to be spending that money forever and ever. Spend that money on improving your infrastructure. Spend that money on having something that legitimately works. And it's not an argument that, I mean, I understand, but like management committees of societies are not necessarily open to that kind of an argument. They want a solution now.
exactly. एग्जैक्टली. एंड दीज 24 आवर कंपोस्टर्स वो भी बहुत कॉन्फिडेंटली बोलते हैं कि अरे बन जाता है, आप देखिए हम आपको डेमो देने कल ही आ जाते हैं. एंड मैंने कहा ओके प्लीज. सो वन ऑफ द सेशंस आई हैव टू लाइक रियली ओपन दैट, यू नो,
Yeah.
दैट एंड से ऐसा नहीं होता है. बट ट्रू, हम ड्राई वेस्ट के ऊपर इतना ज्यादा जो
Hmm.
कि रिसाइकलेबल है अब तो,
Hmm.
जो एमएलपी है वो तो हर तरीके से कुछ ना कुछ उसका बन जाता है. And we are not talking, I'm not focused on recycling, but fir bhi, like you said, that 35 75 and 25 is like a huge
Yeah.
kind of a different picture altogether, because that's not what's shown.
Yeah.
It's always
And
60-40.
yeah, and I think we need to start approaching waste a little differently. So in terms of organic waste, what is it that anyone wants out of true sustainable waste management? You want the best possible environmental outcomes. You want the best possible financial costs allocated to it, and you want the most number of livelihoods that can be generated through that. So you're looking at the social, the financial, and the environmental outcomes. And then, yes, you want the clean streets. But while we're talking about within our own premises, I'll keep the clean streets thing a little aside. But yes, of course, अगर organic waste मेरे society से बाहर नहीं जा रहा है, I'm definitely contributing to less waste on the streets. But if you want these three things, why not imagine a system where the city stops collecting organic waste? नहीं उठाएंगे.
बिल्कुल.
This, and you shift to either a compost collection system or a compost aggregation system, where if your society is generating compost, you deposit at a local store and you can get money for it, like a simple buyback kind of mechanism, or you consume it yourself. Both of that works. I think in the bulk waste generators, at least in Pune, where you have a doorstep collection system, you have space for sorting for recyclables, and you have organic waste management going on. At least 150 of these 300 societies, we have all of these together. 85% of the waste managed is managed at source or diverted to recycling at source. You can also extend this to institutions.
Yeah.
We have set up these micro modular biogas units made by someone in Pune called Vayu Chakrakar Lifestyle Solutions. We've put them in, what is this, the divisional commissionerate office. There's 100 kgs worth of units over there. The canteen waste is put into that. It generates gas, and the canteen uses it again. And the value of the gas per month is around around 8 to 9,000. And the canteen pays 75% of that money, so about 6 to 7,000 rupees to the waste pickers, for whom it's a 1 hour job, 1.5 hour job. So for 1.5 hours, you're getting about 6,000 rupees, provided you manage it well and you're generating the right amount of gas. The organic waste is managed at source. Nobody has to pick it up. And the canteen is benefiting by reduction in at least 25% reduction in its cooking costs. We've done this in slums also. In some of our waste pickers houses, about 51 waste pickers houses, we've set up these 2 kg micro biogas units as an experiment. And about 45 of them are functioning, where the waste picker either takes her own waste and along with that the neighbor's waste, or brings 2 kgs of waste from her work. And 50% of their LPG consumption has been eliminated. Now just imagine what a slum household is. If they can afford to put a 200 liter tank in their house to convert it into biogas in their house, we all have that much space. I'm assuming everyone who can use Zoom and is on this call will have that space. And it's organic waste, it's organic waste to gas to direct use. And I'm not an expert, so I can't get into the debate upon composting versus biogas and what is better for the environment. The way I see it, we can do it in our slums, we can do it in our bungalows, we can do it in our buildings, whether it's composting or biogas. And why should we not look for a future where, just like our toilet waste, our fecal matter, the organic waste is also managed at source, generating an incredible amount of livelihoods, having huge environmental impacts, reducing the financial cost on the city, which is finally our money. So I may be paying 50 rupees here for composting, but eventually I'll have to pay 50% less to the city because they don't have to manage it. I just say two things and stop this part of it. One is, we did a calculation of how many livelihoods can be generated out of in-situ composting and in-situ biogas versus waste collection in SWaCH. So SWaCH has the highest number of that way, 3 to 4 times more livelihoods, because it's slow moving and motorized and hyper decentralized. About 2.5 times more livelihoods for workers as against a motorized system. But which is about 2.8 tons per 2.8 minimum wage livelihoods per ton.
Wow.
If you look at 2.8 livelihoods per ton, if you look at composting at source, in situ composting, that number is about 3.6 livelihoods per ton. And if you look at biogas, because you're getting value out of the biogas, that number shoots up to about 4.5 livelihoods, minimum wage livelihoods per ton of waste managed. So we can look at a system where so many more people get work, so much more waste is managed at source, and the costs for perhaps the total costs remain the same. You're paying it here instead of paying it to the city. Perhaps the cost of decentralized are a little more than the cost of centralized, but the environmental and social outcomes outweigh any financial consideration if you're truly looking at the long term.
Absolutely, absolutely. When people, जब हम बोलते हैं कि ऑर्गेनिक खाओ या केमिकल फ्री खाओ, वो खाना हमेशा थोड़ा ज्यादा एक्सपेंसिव होता है, क्योंकि वो जल्दी खराब भी हो सकता है, उसके लॉजिस्टिक्स कम होगा. So you want to pay a premium to a good service, and it is already happening. People are doing that.
Yeah.
सो आप लिंकिंग रोड या फैशन स्ट्रीट से कोई वाइट शर्ट ले रहे हो तो शायद आप 200-300 से भी ले सकते हो, शायद आप 100 रुपए से भी ले सकते हो। लेकिन वही अगर आप कोई वाइट शर्ट ब्रांडेड स्टोर में जाओगे जो आपकी चॉइस है, तो आप उसके लिए कितने टाइम ज्यादा दे रहे हो।
Sure. Yeah.
Same white will be like this white, that white, that white. There is only one white. But so people are ready to do it, but for what, it is their choice. And we want them to make sustainable behavior change and good choices. That's why हम लोग ये conversation कर रहे हैं, ताकि ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोग ये सुने समझें और ले जाकर अपने सोसाइटी में बात करें. We have a question from Avni. Hi Avni, you can ask your question. And she's struggling with this garbage burning also in her society. So I hope some of her questions got answered today. Avni, you can ask, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Avni and I'm speaking from Baner area. I live in a society like which has almost around somewhere between 1500 to 2000 households. And when the society is full, like there is still construction going on. So it is expected to go around 3000 households. So I had a talk with the chairman
Yeah.
regarding wet waste management, and then we approached SWaCH. Like I approached SWaCH, they did not, but they
Okay.
found that the space that like the common space that we have in the
Yeah.
society, there are two, three different spaces actually.
Yeah.
But pits banane ke liye, that space is low. We do have it in different places, like two, three plots, but I don't know they're willing to dedicate all those plots to managing the waste. But yeah, ye ek issue tha. So I started thinking that if it is not going to happen, like for the whole society. So the society was actually bungalow society, but then they got permission to build apartments. So 6, 7 floors ke apartments hai, like on an
Okay.
average. So on
Okay.
an average, like 14, नहीं हाँ मतलब मेरा जो अपार्टमेंट है उसमें 14 फ्लैट्स है। तो मैं सोच रही थी कि हर एक अपार्टमेंट में अगर हम उसको मैनेज करें तो पूरे सोसाइटी का एक साथ नहीं करना पड़ेगा।
Yeah.
But what model is good? So I see that my father himself is a builder, but space crunch इतना है।
Yeah.
Parkings they are somehow fitting the parkings in. तो उसमें पिट्स कहाँ बनेंगे, मतलब कंस्ट्रक्शन में वो है ही नहीं। आई डोंट नो हाउ दे आर एबल टू पास द
So,
म्युनिसिपल, क्या बोलते हैं उसको,
yeah.
विदाउट द
So,
पिट्स।
couple of things. One is, no matter how you look at it, there's going to be a cost involved. So when
राइट
you allocate space in your society, you're giving up real estate, and that's the cost that involved. That's most people are trying to avoid. But if you've not done that, right? If the building has not done that, and finally your total value of your building is higher because there's bigger, 100 square feet more in every household, so on and so forth. You have to look at what you're suggesting is one thing, definitely, that you split it. So there are no clear regulations that are for or against what I'm saying, but you can do it on your terrace. It is not so stressful at all.
सो
Your
पिट्स ऑन
buildings,
टेरेस।
yeah, your buildings are meant to handle tons and tons and tons of weight, right? Your father might be able to tell you exactly. But on your terrace, if you have 15 households, for example, in your building, or if you have 20 households in your building, it's going to take about 40 square feet of space, maximum 40 square feet of space. You don't necessarily have to build the pits in concrete, PCC and concrete. You can get metal, like get a metal thing fabricated that is put over there. Some things you have to be careful about, which is if it's on the terrace, तो बारिश अंदर नहीं जाना चाहिए. तो उसके लिए एक तो आप शेड बनाइए, that might be unauthorized, but शेड बनाइए या आप उसको ऐसे कवर कीजिए कि पानी अंदर नहीं जाएगा फॉर दिस 4-5 months. You can do some जुगाड़ for 4-5 months, or you build a proper thing where it is completely covered. You can build a basic wire mesh on your terrace which can handle it. That's one option. Option two is that the much more expensive option is that you put biogas on your terrace, for which there is there's no bar to it. At 14-15 households, you need 1 or 2 modular biogas units. They cost about a little more than a lakh per unit. But then उसमें से जो gas generate होता है, that can be shared by the residents, or you can give it to one or two residents. And I've seen different models. Some society, there are very few, but in that there's a variation. Some societies say कि अच्छा, if you're going to go through that, you as a resident are going to go through the trouble of utilizing the gas, which is slower, it's not as effective, then you get it for free. Some have said that you pay 50% of the value of the gas that you consume because you're going to benefit from it. So you can have different kind of models that are jointly agreed upon. Some people have like a watchman का living there, तो उनके घर में दे देते हैं, उनका gas कम हो जाता है. It's like a payment to the watchman. So you can have biogas that manages it. There is a massive society in Hinjewadi phase 3, I can't recall the name, where they have taken up one, like where they're doing it in a massive society. Like you're saying, a 2,000, 3,000 housing ka society. They're putting up multiple modular biogas units and supplying it to the residents and managing their organic waste at source. So terrace is definitely one idea. I have to be honest, I don't know why more people are not doing it on their terrace. The issue with the
So
terrace
one reason I know that,
is
like
cost. Huh.
my father, like he is having this idea of building beautiful terraces. So if you see the
Hmm.
terrace, it will feels like a garden.
Hmm.
So if I tell him, he cannot imagine having compost pits over there because that will be
But I think,
something not
but
so cool,
that's
right?
but that's an issue with the lens. If you do your composting very well, composting pits
It
smell like
shouldn't. I know.
composting
So
pits
I
smell
do
like
compost on
petrichor,
my terrace.
right?
I
They smell
have a
like
200-liter drum. So I
yeah,
do it on terrace, but yeah, it's a different model, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. But so pits, if done properly, pits or biomeshes, if done properly, will smell like petrichor. And if you want a garden on your terrace, you can take the compost from here and put it onto the right here into your terrace.
I
Really, in
know.
spaces that are limited, you have these two options. Do it on your terraces, split it across buildings. The cost becomes higher, not because of the infrastructure, because now you have to pay someone to go to the terrace, into that space and manage it over there. Or you do biogas where the capital cost is much, much higher. Your wire mesh will cost you 30,000 or 35,000 for such a small place, but the biogas unit will cost you about 2 lakhs or so. But then there's value coming out. So you have to make these choices. One of these will definitely work, but whichever way you look at it, either you have to put down the capital cost for the biogas or the operations cost in the long term for the composting. And in both cases, you have to take on, as a society, take on the responsibility in the long term to manage them one way or the other, whether it's just through SWaCH waste pickers or a resident or a housekeeping person.
Right, right. Thank you. I have another question, but if no one has question, then I'll ask at the end.
We do have a question, Avni. Amrita is asking, are we thinking about replicating Indore model? A lot of garbage is just lying on road. Pune being high tech should not be much fight.
So there are many aspects of the Indore model that can definitely be replicated here. The two or three key things that I think they've done very well for a very long time is, one is that they have an independent information, education, communication campaign, where for a city of having about, at that time, a few years ago, 6 lakh properties, they had 600 feet on the ground, full times 600 feet on the ground, whose only job was to take the 1,000 households allocated to them and ensure segregation at source, push for making sure that they pay the user fees, push to make sure that they're giving the waste on time, that they are not littering, and then for monitoring the geographical area in which those 1,000 households were located. Um, it's very expensive because at that same level in Pune, we'd need about 1,500 such staff at a minimum wage of 25,000 that we have for municipal wages right now. You can do the calculation of how much it costs, but that's an investment to make. You are convincing your citizens one by one. See, many people who come to this kind of a webinar are half ready. I'll say some outrageous things and you're half ready to accept it. There is no conversation about segregation क्यों करना चाहिए, kind of thing. But a lot of people are not like that. 80% of our population does not know, have difficult lives, do not care about this at all. In order to convince them, you have to meet them, you have to talk to them, not once, not twice, consistently, every week for a year, if you want to make sure that the mentality of disposing stuff, of throwing things away, is going to shift. And this is one big thing that Indore has done, which many other cities have successfully replicated, irrespective of the mode of collection or the mode of management. Once you have excellent segregation, your logistics become simpler, your processing becomes simpler. You don't have backlogs, plants don't shut down, so on and so forth. So this is one thing. The other thing that they do from the Indore model is street cleanliness. They work in 3 shifts. They have around 8,000 something, 400, 500 sweepers, um, who work in 3 shifts continuously sweeping the streets. They have litter bins everywhere. Everyone has a place to throw the waste. Pune, in comparison, has about 9,800 sweepers. And Pune is 2.3 times larger by population and by geography. So they have 2.5 times more sweepers who are sweeping the streets consistently. And so if you have an IEC campaign that talks to citizen and you have your very bare basic waste collection system, right? I'm not even saying zyada complicated, basic waste collection system, but you're talking to people every week and your streets are impeccably clean continuously. And you are able to put litter waste and even if people are dumping waste, they have a small litter bins to put their waste in. You can start convincing people to change their habits. And that is not being done. That's not being done in Pune. I will sing praises of the SWaCH model, but that level of investment is not there. Yeah, कि सिटीजन से बात करना है हमारे शहर में सेग्रीगेशन हो रहा है काफी अच्छा हो रहा है but it's unfortunately that the PMC sees excellent segregation because a waste picker is not allowed to give her waste in a mixed way आगे. So if you do mix it out of 200 households, if 5 households are mixing the waste, she will still have to segregate it before giving it ahead. So the PMC gets excellent waste, but doorstep pay, the level is not, say, if the PMC gets 95% segregated, doorstep it would be 80, and somebody else is doing that thing. How do you convince these people? After having convinced 80% people, how do you convince the rest of the 20,000? How do you go from first class to distinction? You talk to them and you require an immense amount of investment for doing that. Social media campaigns, big programs, cleanup drives, fines and all of that don't really work. This is, you need these 2 key things. Keep your streets clean by sweeping them and talk to your citizens at a huge level. And then choose whether you want to make this investment or not, because there are other things in the city that you have to do. Just one last thing. Our minimum wage in Pune is 2.5. Somehow it's also 2.5 times more what it is in Indore. So whatever their budget is going to cost us 2.5 into 2.5, okay, 7.5 times more to do the exact same thing. We could alternatively look at small changes, identify what the issue is. Why are our plants shutting down? Why is there waste on my street? Because the plant is not working. If the plant is not working, the vehicle from the waste picker to the plant is not going. If the vehicle is not going, then the waste picker is waiting on the street with her waste. After 3 hours, she's like, मैं घर जा रहा है. उसके बाद वहां पे कचरा पड़ा रहता है. So fix the plants. They're not so difficult to fix. Fix the plants. The secondary collection system in Pune, out of 100% of the waste generated, 20% of the waste generated is being collected by the secondary waste collection system. So what should be put to collecting waste from chronic spots, from dumping areas, from waste pickers, 30 to 40% is dedicated to collecting from citizens for free. Now, if we don't solve this, we'll never have the resources. So these are some small things that one can do in Pune to really change.
So, Harshad, Vinod Kumar has a question, but I also have a question. I know we've overshot the time. Do you have like 10 more minutes?
I have time.
So why do we have 2.5 times more minimum wage like in Pune?
Well, it's a Maharashtra minimum wage. It's a labor law, so I can't really tell. I can't give you the scientific explanation, but I'll tell you my understanding. Every state decides what its minimum wage amount is going to be for different kinds of industries. And for municipal work in Indore or in Madhya Pradesh, for municipal linked work, the minimum wage used to be around 10 or 11,000 or something like that. And here in Pune now, minimum wage, PF, PSI, labor welfare, all the components combined together is about 26,000 in Pune. Is because the standard of living in Pune is higher. The cost of what do you say? The consumer cost index is higher. So the parameters that decide what the minimum wage should be are much higher over here. It's a simple thing. No? Labor is cheap in Madhya Pradesh compared to Pune, and as is for the private, so is for the public. So that's really the basic difference.
I wanted to ask this question specifically because बहुत लोग ऐसा सोचते हैं कि इनको क्या जरूरत है इतने Why do they need?
इतना क्या जरूरत है इनको पैसे के लिए? यार, you put together your subscription costs. Just whatever you watch on your TV and your phone subscription and your internet subscription costs. You look at that and you'll see it's a fifth or sixth of that 25,000.
People do
because life is expensive. Life is extremely expensive.
And when I meet people like housekeeping staff or janitors or ये सब जिनके बच्चे computer science पढ़ रहे हैं, and they are the first, like they're literally trying to break this the entire family's chains of this misery and poverty. and it's happening in front of our eyes. And why would you not support that?
Yeah, yeah. And really, the person who keeps my street clean and composts my waste, saving my future, and recycles my plastic, saving my future, they should get paid more than the clerk who is, signing forms in some random office or a receptionist. Why shouldn't they get paid more? It doesn't look good, but it's contributing so much more to our existence.
Exactly. So now I'll have Vinod Kumar ask his question. Hi, Vinod.
हेलो नमस्कार मैं विनोद रांची झारखंड से बात कर रहा हूँ।
No.
हाँ। हमारा एक सिमिलर मैं वेस्ट पे थोड़ा काम करता हूँ, तो सिमिलर काइंड ऑफ एक्सपीरियंस है। उसमें कुछ हमें चैलेंजेस फेस किया था, वो आपके साथ शेयर कर रहा हूँ, शायद आप कुछ मुझे हेल्प कर पाओ। जानते हैं जैसा कि रांची में वो रांची म्युनिसिपल कॉरपोरेशन जो है कि उठा के कचरा एक झीरी करके एक साइट है, वहां पे वो डंप करती है। तो हमने यहाँ पे कोशिश किया था ये डिसेंट्रलाइज्ड वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट का करने का। तो समहाउ कुछ पैसा जुगाड़ किया था और 100 हाउस होल्ड के साथ हमने ये इनिशिएट किया था। एंड उसी सेम लोकेलिटी पे आई थिंक अप्रोक्स 2.5 किलोमीटर पे एक सेटलमेंट है रैक पिकर्स का। उसमें से हमने ये 2 लोगों को इंगेज किया था और उन 100 हाउस होल्ड से हम वेट वेस्ट एंड वेट वेस्ट एक बीन में करके सप्ताह में एक बार कलेक्ट कर रहे थे अपने प्रोसेसिंग सेंटर पे। एंड जो ड्राई वेस्ट था उसे बोरी में करके कलेक्ट कर रहे थे। इसमें दो तीन चैलेंज जो फेस किया। एक तो ये जो रैक पिकर्स की कम्युनिटी है, तो ये जल्दी हम पे विश्वास नहीं कर रहे थे। इनको लग रहा था ये एक्सटर्नल है, कौन है, मतलब इतना अपना गरीब है वो, जिस सिचुएशन में वो जल्दी बाहर वाले को एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते। दूसरा, उन पे उनका जो कबाड़ी वाला होता है उसका बहुत ज्यादा कंट्रोल था। वो एक्सटर्नल्स वो उनका मतलब पैसे पे उनका मटेरियल जो कलेक्ट करके ला रहे, इवन कि उनका जो डिस्ट्रेस सिचुएशन है उस समय भी वही उनका मेन, तो वो भी नहीं एंट्री करने देता है। एंड बहुत बार झारखंड के केस में क्या है कि वो ड्रिंक भी किए हुए रहते हैं, बहुत सारे केसेस था। तो वो हमें अलाउ नहीं कर रहे थे अपने अंदर आना। तो समहाउ एक किया, लेकिन वो बहुत जल्दी फ्लक्चुएट निकल जा रहा था, कभी आता कभी नहीं आता। तो हमें सर्विस डिलीवरी में बहुत मतलब कई बार तो हम थक गए। हम बाहर से लेबरर्स ला करके और खुद से बीन उठाना ये वो करना पड़ा। तो एक तो मतलब रैक पिकर्स का फेथ कैसे जीत पाए या उनके साथ कैसे इनिशिएट करें, एक तो ये है। दूसरा जो आ रहा था कि जो ड्राई वेस्ट जो हम कलेक्ट कर रहे थे, तो उसमें जो पेट बोटल्स थी या फिर कांच के सामान थे जो थोड़ा जिसका वैल्यू है, उस पे तो रैक पिकर्स का इंटरेस्ट था, बट एमएलपी पे कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं था। एमएलपी तो मतलब लाना भी नहीं चाहते थे, और एमएलपी हमारे पास भी वेस्ट के ही रूप में आ गया, हमारे पास भी बहुत सारा जमा हो गया, हम भी कुछ नहीं कर पा रहे थे। लास्ट में हमें आरएमसी की गाड़ियों में डालना पड़ा। इवन अभी भी मेरा एक डिस्कशन जो रांची में फॉरेस्ट की कॉलोनी है, फॉरेस्ट ऑफिसर्स कॉलोनी, तो उनके एक सीनियर ऑफिसर के साथ मेरा डिस्कशन हो रहा है। वो चाह रहे हैं करना, बट अगेन उनका सवाल यही है कि जो प्लास्टिक वेस्ट है, वेट वेस्ट का तो मुझ पे रिलाई कर रहे हैं कि वेट वेस्ट आप मैनेज कर दोगे, बट ड्राई वेस्ट का एंड स्पेसिफिकली ये एमएलपी का, इसका प्रॉपर रिसाइकलिंग होना चाहिए और वो प्रूफ के साथ, ताकि वो अपना आंसर कर पाए जो फर्दर उनके जो ऑफिसर्स हैं उनको। तो ये एमएलपी वाला एक चैलेंज हमें बहुत ज्यादा आया। एंड थर्ड वन की जो ड्राई वेस्ट हम जो वेट वेस्ट को जब कंपोस्टिंग कर रहे थे, तो ड्राई वेस्ट के रूप में हम सॉ डस्ट मिला रहे थे। तो सॉ डस्ट मतलब एक रेकरिंग कॉस्ट उसमें आ रहा था और काफी महंगा आता है। तो हमारे लिए ये पूरा ना जो पूरा हमने प्रयास किया, ये कहीं भी मतलब प्रॉफिटेबल नहीं हुआ, ना तो हमारे लिए ही ना रैक पिकर्स के लिए, मतलब हमारे जेब से हमें भरना पड़ा, ये सिचुएशन हुई। ऑलमोस्ट 4 to 5 रुपीज केजी हम सॉडस्ट ही परचेज कर रहे थे, और रेकरिंग कॉस्ट चल रहा था, हर महीने आपको लेना है। तो ये सारा मतलब ये 3 4 सिचुएशन में हम फंस गए। एंड देन अभी मैं स्ट्रगल कर रहा हूँ कि आगे कैसे जाऊँ। तो अगर आप मुझे कुछ हेल्प करवाइए, आप बोलो तो बाद में भी हम कनेक्ट कर सकते हैं।
So आपका question is like all consuming, and I have to answer 20 questions to answer yours. I'll limit myself to just a few points, Vinod ji. I hope you don't mind. एक आई थिंक बेसिकली अप्रोच का इशू है। एक ये है कि से पुणे में फॉर एग्जांपल वेस्ट पिकर्स के थ्रू जब वेस्ट कलेक्शन करवा होता है, तो द कॉस्ट ऑफ दैट वेस्ट कलेक्शन इज अबाउट 120 रुपीज पर हाउस होल्ड, बॉल पार्क फिगर है, पर मंथ। उसमें से 90 रुपए सिटीजन देते हैं कैश में, और 30 रुपए वेस्ट पिकर उनका स्क्रैप बेच के कमाता है। सो दैट रिसाइकलिंग वैल्यू इज बीइंग यूज्ड डायरेक्टली फॉर वेस्ट कलेक्शन। पर अगर उनको वो 30 रुपए पे डिपेंडेंट बोला तो कोई नहीं करेगा। So there is the waste collection activity cannot be based on recyclable value at all. It has to require a service cost ka element. The second thing is the kind of waste that you're talking about, multi-layered plastic. Um, I, I don't, it is not truly recyclable, yeah. I mean, होता है रिसाइकल, हम करते हैं। दिन का 5 टन हम पूरे शहर से उठा के रिसाइकलर तक, वापी में और गुजरात में दूर दूर तक हम ट्रांसपोर्ट करके हम एमएलपी रिसाइकिल करवाते हैं, मैकेनिकली रिसाइकिल करके उसके बोर्ड और पेलेट्स बनवाते हैं। बट एज ऑफ नाउ दैट एंटायर एक्सरसाइज कॉस्ट अस 16 to 18 rupees per kg, and the value that we get from sale to the person is 4 rupees per kg. It runs at a loss of 14 rupees per kg for 5 tons a day, for 5,000 kgs a day. That is the true cost, that is the true value of that material. अभी हम कर रहे हैं because we've brought in a consortium of, like, there's a PMC, there's SWaCH, there's an ITC, different people are coming together to fund this activity. But if you do it in the open market, it's not going to happen because it's not logistically and financially recyclable. Technically हो सकता है, हम भी recycle हो जाएंगे, but it's not a financially recyclable material. So using
बट
MLP, हाँ जी।
जो रिसाइकलर्स हैं अभी तो हम उसी के साथ कनेक्ट करना चाहते हैं ताकि उनको दे दें ऐसा।
हाँ जी, आप देखिए, आप कनेक्ट होने के बाद है ना, वो एमएलपी वाला आपको 1 किलो के पीछे 2 रुपए या 4 रुपए देगा ज्यादा से ज्यादा। पर आपका कॉस्ट ऑफ कलेक्शन, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, एग्रीगेशन, बेलिंग, फाइनल ट्रांसपोर्टेशन एंड डिलीवरी विल बी अपवर्ड्स ऑफ 10 rupees. So you will never be able to run it as a profitable thing. So whether you're in the formal sector or you're in the informal sector, nobody is happy to manage it. So MLP is a problem, and we can talk later about it also. And in terms of sawdust, you can replace it with dried leaves. अगर आपके यहाँ पे लीफ लिटर है, it's a easy enough substitution. There's some amount of technical knowledge that one requires to be able to do it. But in all of these three things, composting, plastic waste, and collection, one has to know that waste is not a profit center. Waste is a cost center. The only reason we see people making money in waste is because they do one part of the job that has some profit element in it. But waste is a cost center. अगर वो cost center नहीं रहता था, तो हमारा शहर और हमारा state हमारे property tax में से वो नहीं करता था. It would have just been done by private individuals everywhere. This is something that we really need to uh, build into people's minds, because waste is wealth in terms of the fact that it's a resource that we've pulled out of the earth and we need to put it back into that. But waste is not wealth in terms of the bottom line of a company, unless you're taking one small thing and PET bottle leke aap profitability banate ho. Why PET gets recycled and other things don't? PET is profitable to recycle. Plastic is not profitable to recycle. So these are things that we have to keep in mind. Sorry.
नो एंड विनोद
Yeah.
हम इसके बारे में अलग से बात करेंगे, और आपके जो सारे सवाल हैं उसके हम आपको अच्छे से जवाब, और उसके जो आपको हैंड होल्डिंग चाहिए, सारा कुछ मदद चाहिए, वो हम और भी सब लोग के साथ मिलके कर सकते हैं। बिकॉज कुछ एमएलपी के हैं, कुछ
जी।
जैसे हर्षद बता रहे हैं कि एक एक स्पेसिफिक जो करते हैं ना, वो लोग ही उसको प्रॉफिटेबल बनाने में उन्होंने अपना एक फॉर्मूला बना लिया है। तो आपके पास, आई होप आप माई वेस्ट माई रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी का पार्ट हैं ग्रुप का, तो आप वहां पे मुझे मैसेज करिए और हम इसके बारे में एक कॉल सेटअप करके जरूर मदद करेंगे आपको।
यस सर, थैंक यू।
मोस्ट वेलकम। संतोष, आपके पास भी एक क्वेश्चन है? हम लोग तो आगे बढ़ते जा रहे हैं।
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Hi, Harshad. Good evening.
Hi, Satosh. Hi.
Yeah. You said home composting, right? See, we are veg, so there is no issues of we don't consume non-veg, so there is no issue. So it is easily compostable. At home, we can use cocoa peats or what else, cow dung, dry cow dung, all those stuff, and we can do it so easily. But I don't have experience, like I don't have met people who consume non-veg, like fish or chicken, whatever it is, and how they do the composting at home, how smelly it will be, I don't know about it. If you have any idea or thoughts about it, you can tell about that. That is one question. And second thing is like, is there any company's product who makes good composting machines, either based on SWaCH experience or based on Pune people's experience? If you recommend some companies, it will be good. I'm from Bangalore. Thank you.
So what do you mean by product? If I could just ask, machine
Composting
product.
machines, OWCs or composters, composting bins or whatever. Because in the market, there are so many companies who make composting bins and composting machines and products, right? So different sets of combination, all those things are there. It's becoming a huge market.
Yes.
So there is a huge competition also for it. So, and few things are fraudulent, as you said. Some composting machines, they will generate heat and then they will make it as fast composting process, blah blah blah. But finally, the outcome, the compost value will not be very nutritious for the soil. Right? It will be like the value of the compost will be very low, might be. So there are so many things. So if you know, or SWaCH team know, or in Pune, if you people have observed any such good feedback received to companies or products, you can recommend us so that we can also do some R&D on that part. Yeah, thank you. These two are the two questions now.
Sure. So in terms of the non-vegetarian food consumption, I gave a caveat in the beginning that I'm not a composting expert. I'll tell you anecdotally, मुझे जो समझता है कि if you eat once or twice a week and you're principally eating fish or chicken, a large amount of that waste can be managed in your basic home composting also. It will take an incredible amount of time for it to get composting. The simple way would be is that to use a grinder. If you have a kitchen grinder, you shred it into small pieces or you convert it into powder, and then you put it into your composting bin after allowing it to dry. So you keep it separate from keep your bones separately, wash them once, grind them, put them into your compost. They will still not get composted very quickly, but relative to just putting it in there and relative to throwing it out, it would be better. Now, if you're a household that consumes mutton or beef, where the bones are very, very big, then I honestly don't know what the answer is in terms of home composting. But I will ask some of my composting team colleagues are on the call also. I will ask them and I will get back to you and tell you what can be done. There are certain company in Pune, for example, there's a company called Inora that makes cultures to speed up. They make consortium cultures to speed up home composting and community composting. I can put you in touch with them and they might be able to give you the technical bio microbes specific answer for your first question. For the second question about who makes a good machine, you're in luck if you're in Bangalore, because Bangalore has like a lot of companies who are selling composting products. I will share a list with Anuja ji, and perhaps she can just share that with you. We have tried some of them. Our understanding is that basically they're all the same. It's really how you use the machine that makes a difference. If you have a machine जिसमें आपको सिर्फ कचरा डाल के भूल जाना है, if you have a machine where you just put and forget about it, don't buy it and don't use it. If you have a machine where they tell you, boss, even after putting in, you have to do these 3 things and then it gets managed, those are the machines to look at. Anything other than shredding and mixing, any heat component is not okay. You have Stone Soup that makes quite a few of them. You have someone called Aditi that also makes some. There's someone called Marigold that are making these terrace ke liye composting units. We haven't experimented enough with it. Once we do, we can get back to you about it. But we have a list of people that we've talked to in Bangalore very recently that I can share with you. And you can, there is one of my colleagues can maybe say Kala something center in Bangalore where they have an exhibition of all of these different machines. Maybe that's a place to look at.
Kalika Kendra.
I'll share a list. Kalika Kendra is very nice. My experience has been जो bamboo composters हैं, जो basic grill composters हैं, those are excellent. The plastic ones finally at some point of time they're not great. They break or they get bad. Your most basic cheapest ones are really the good ones. In terms of the machines, Opal has I'll share the ones that we recommend to societies for the OWCs and the shredders, and if they're available over there. Right, Daily Dump, correct. Daily Dump is also fairly decent. The machines, shredders, and OWCs, I can share the list. Yeah.
Definitely. And Santosh, मैं ऐसे बोलूंगी like the bones that you asked. हमारे पास 2 dogs हैं, indie dogs जो हमने adopt किए हैं.
Okay.
डॉग्स को बोन दे दो, उनको भी एक आपको बाजार से खरीद के एक पैकेज प्रोडक्ट जो बोन्स वो बेच रहे हैं वो देने के बदले यू कैन जस्ट गिव द बोन्स टू द डॉग। उनके लिए भी एक गम एक्सरसाइज है और उनको भी मजा आता है कि अरे कुछ हमको एक्साइटिंग काम मिला खाने के लिए। सो दैट इज व्हाट आई choose to do instead of
Yeah, that I agree.
So you can
But
run.
everyone will not have the pet animals, right? That's
So
the problem. Yeah.
So you will have to run a composting center and a pet rescue center also, animal rescue center, and you can package both of them together.
या मतलब मैं तो हमेशा सबको
Okay.
बोलती हूँ कि
Nice.
आप बोन्स दे दो और हम ले जाके उनको दे देंगे। आई थिंक नेक्स्ट हमारा कैंपेन वही रहेगा, कलेक्ट द बोन्स एंड फीड द डॉग्स। सो we'll work on it. But yeah, and we have someone from Pune who's been using Vayu's products, Amit. And actually I wanted to share ki Priyadarshan was on Wednesdays for Waste Warriors kuch hafte pehle. So he shared about how are they doing, and he also sang a very nice Kabir ka song. So Amit is asking, people talk about the famous SWaCH model of Pune. Can Harshad tell us something more about it? What are its features, etc.? I think हमने बहुत उसी के बारे में बात करी. But if you have a USP that you would like to share and
So it is a hyper decentralized doorstep, true doorstep collection model where women who were collecting waste on the streets first are now collecting from the doorstep for a direct user fee mechanism and principally unmotorized. You put these components together, the women, the waste picker women who are coming to the true doorstep getting paid directly by the citizens. So the direct user fee, many people object to it. Many people have a different viewpoint on it. But I always pay my paper wala and doodh wala based on the service that they give me or the products that they sell to me. I can do that with a municipal service also. There's direct transparency, there's direct accountability, many positives and negatives potentially that one can talk about. But the directness of this is what ensures that one is segregating, the other is collecting regularly. You don't have to depend on someone far away to make sure that the service is actually coming to you. Non-motorized, not only so that maximum livelihoods, but because the waste can then be segregated, it can be sorted, it can be composted, it can be sent for recycling even before it meets the municipal vehicle. These 3 or 4 core things: women, waste picker, hyper decentralized, non-motorized, and direct user fee based, where the waste pickers have the right over the waste when they collect it. So they have the right over the organic waste, they can compost it at source. They have the right over the dry waste, and they will remove as much as possible and sell it directly for recycling. You put these things together in any kind of a model, in any kind of a city with 20 other things, but you stick to these core basics of true doorstep, direct user fee, 100% segregation mandatory, and right over waste, you can have it replicated wherever you want.
very, very, very well thrived, I would say.
There's one core USP that I didn't say,
Okay.
which is that the ownership of the system is of the workers. I am a clerk. I'm a paid clerk who gets paid for the work that I do, and I can be hired and fired along with all of my staff at any day of the week. The waste pickers are not. They are the true owners. They're the shareholders. They take the final decisions. I report to a board of waste pickers. And so when you have the workers own the system, it just brings in a higher level of dedication and cooperation and coordination that leads to a far more longer self-sustaining mechanism. Just as an example, we always hear about strikes. We always hear about contractor ने पैसा नहीं दिया इसलिए काम बंद पड़ा है all across the country. We've never struck work. Because who will strike work? No? The speaker is providing you a service. If she does not come to you, you don't pay her. So there's no striking and all. And for 2.5 years, there was no contract between the PMC and SWaCH. Waste pickers came, they went, they collected, they sorted, they sent for recycling, they gave to PMC, they went home, they got paid. The system worked. There were none of us, no clerks involved, but the system works, it's self-sustaining. So you think about all of these, it can work everywhere. It's not a USP, 5 USPs, I guess.
But yeah, it's really incredible because when they take ownership, that commitment and that entire the way of working, the thought process, the mindset, everything changes. Yeah. I hope
It is also answer to Binodji's one question: how do you win trust? I don't think we win trust. I think we serve. So there is, I mean, they are the owners, and we are just the trustees of what they have built. So if you build workers' organizations where there is true ownership of the workers themselves, it is their livelihoods, their work, their organization. They will take much more ownership. Then they have to win your trust and not the other way around.
Santosh, you wanted to add something?
Yes, actually, Binod Kumar asked one question about the multi-layered plastics, right? So because nobody pick it up, and then it has low value in the market, all those stuff. So can't this extended producer's responsibility play the game to put the responsibility on the packers who like lace chips or whatever the types of things where the MLP is used? So can't this extended producer responsibility can't play any game there so that uh, the value goes back to them or the responsibility goes back to them, kind of?
In principle or in theory, yes, that's what EPR is supposed to be. They can absolutely do it. In in terms of the practical way in which the legislation is designed and the milestones and the goalposts that have been put for companies, it is near impossible for it to do it. One major reason, among, I mean, many reasons, but one major reason is that MLP, as we understand it, chips packets, chocolate wrappers, is not a distinct category from other flexible plastics, which it used to be for many years, but it no longer is. So if I am generating MLP or flexible plastic, my commitment in terms of EPR can be managed by taking care of pure LDPE plastic waste also. There was a time where it was just a few years ago, MLP was a separate category. Uh, and then you had to look at recycling of that material. But now that the material categories have been combined, people have just get away with it, is one. And two, the real cost of mechanically recycling MLP is so high that if the government were to enforce it, most MLP would have to close down. Maybe मैं थोड़ा ज्यादा ही बात कर रहा हूँ, maybe not, maybe your chips are more expensive finally, but the true cost is so high that it is no longer viable for companies to sell in that packaging. One of the reasons for that packaging is that it's cheaper than other alternatives, than hard plastics. And so the powers that be, the biggest, strongest FMCG companies will never allow for that kind of a shift to happen. Uh, and so, yes, can EPR do it in theory? Of course it can, but in practice it won't happen. The monetary, the alignments of money and the weak regulations are something that both are not going to allow for that to happen in India. In 2016, there was a rule that said, the rule said that in 2 years' time, multi-layered plastics that cannot be recycled have to be banned. Uh, 1 year, 1.9 years later, just before 2 years, it was like if it can't be recycled or if it can't be recovered into energy, so you could burn it. Then came the EPR laws that said that, oh, it's a separate category. You have to meet 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% recycling targets over the next 6 years. When the time came to implement it, the definition of the category suddenly changed and MLP became like all flexible plastics. So there is a much larger power and everything at play that stops it from actually working out. The answer is banning. The answer is moving towards reuse systems, but those are also, composting is a reality. Reuse systems are, I don't know, 20 years now.
एंड आई थिंक संतोष आपने खुद ही उसको आंसर कर दिया आपके क्वेश्चन में. 2 बार आपने वो यूज करा, गेम. सो इट इज अ गेम्स, we have to just watch because it's not in our hands. EPR is something that's far away from us. we we know that collection. कौन चिप्स खा के कभी कोई बिन में डालता है? एक स्पेसिफाइड बिन है, किसी कंपनी ने दी है, किसी दुकान वाले के पास है. नो, इट्स अबाउट द चिप्स तुमने खरीदी है, नाउ इट्स योर प्रॉब्लम. सो जब तक हमने वो रूल बना दिया, लेकिन अगर फैसिलिटी नहीं प्रोवाइड करी, सो दैट मीन्स इट्स जस्ट लाइक अ टॉक. इट्स नॉट, यू डोंट हैव द इंटेंशन टू इम्प्लीमेंट. सो जब तक आपने चिप्स के साथ वो पूरा जिंग बैंग नहीं दिया कि ट्रक आया है, चिप्स डिलीवर किया है और साथ में बिन डिलीवर किया है, फिर उसके बाद ट्रक आएगा वो लेके, ऑल ऑफ दैट जब तक वो नहीं होगा तब तक कुछ भी नहीं होगा.
Yeah, but that's not feasible at all. No? I mean, my
It's
milk delivery guy can maybe take my milk packets, but then we asked waste pickers about how this reuse system works, and they're like, okay, so what are you asking me to do? You're asking me to take a tempo with 30 different dabbas, one for my grains, one for my milk, one for my this, one for so on and so forth. And then what do I do? I can't even afford to go and get it. And if it is going to be delivered to me, how do I get that delivery? What is the cost of delivery of the I would buy at least 500 distinct items every single month. What is the cost of the delivery of those 500 distinct items and the reverse logistics involved in it? It's fairly, so we can do reuse by maybe modifying the materials. Uh, so one of the biggest reuse cases in India is beer bottles. They are produced, they're transported, they're consumed, they're given to waste pickers, they go to scrap shops, they go to washing units, they go back to the companies, and your Kingfisher comes back in a Kingfisher bottle. So you look at different kind of delivery mechanisms that can be reused, but through the existing sector. If you try and set up a reverse logistics based collection system, maybe an Amazon can do it, but nobody else can. Your local retailer can just shut down then. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not feasible. It's not even
It's
practical.
not feasible.
Bolenge that it's just so expensive, and logistics is like the most expensive part I've seen. Even in Pune, someone wants to send the milk packets from Manzar or someplace, they have to courier it, or people are sending from Belgaum because they don't have a person. So you this logistics जो है वो बहुत expensive है, and उसके कारण most of the people give up.
Yeah.
They think no, it's not possible. So
You have to change your consumption patterns.
yes,
Change your consumption patterns or push for better policies in whatever way you can.
exactly. So
But in Pune itself, there are some companies who upcycle these kind of multi-layered plastics and
Yes.
make
Bags and other things,
bags, all
purses
those
out of it.
stuff.
Yeah.
In that
So you
case,
can,
SWaCH can't redirect those instead of sending it to Gujarat with a huge expense of logistics, all the stuff. Instead of that, within Pune itself, you people can route them to that kind of recharka kind of companies to upcycle and sell it at high value, right? It will be more beneficial, I think so.
so there are two issues. One is that recharka like model, they're doing good work. Um, but their margins also don't allow them to buy the material from the waste pickers.
yeah.
They can have people give it to them for free or they can pick it up, but to collect from waste pickers, they will only take it or buy it from like where their unit is set up, वहां से वो ले सकते हैं. But if they want it from somewhere further away, the costs don't work out. More importantly, and the second point is the scale. At at what See, multi-layered plastic is the numbers, I'm losing the numbers, but see, we are collecting about 5 tons per day. And my assumption is that we are at about maybe 10 or 20% of the generation of multi-layered plastic in Pune. So there's about 50 tons, say, for example, anywhere between 45 to 50 tons of MLP being generated everywhere in the city. Recharka, while they do excellent work, they will consume maybe a ton a year.
Wow.
It's nothing. It's a drop in the, unfortunately, it's a drop in the ocean when it comes to the amount of waste that is being generated today. So yes, you can have upcycling, and it's great. I think it generates more awareness. It builds a little more empathy, lets people understand what you can do with waste. But it is not a way out, that kind of upcycling. Absolutely not. Unless you're going to buy every single kapda, cloth, absolutely everything. If you replace textiles with MLP based material, maybe. But even then, the consumption won't be that high. Cloth waste is some 10%, 10 tons or something per day compared to MLP. So there used to be an argument that we can put our plastic into roads. Even if you ignore the environmental issues with that, you could do all the roads in India with like a few weeks worth of plastic that's generated in India. And then what do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
So the consumption, the scale of these solutions is very, very small. You have to eliminate, you have to replace, or you have to build like who said you have to build a system where EPR is going to force every single company to pay for the 14 rupees deficit in managing that waste so that it can go into mechanical recycling. These are the 2 or 3 things that one needs to happen, but they're at a scale of Government of India and International Plastic Treaty Pact that I don't know.
Yes, we should be hopeful, and we shall, the more we talk about it, the more we write, the more we put our thoughts open in the open forum, that is how the suggestions are included, and we get a chance to share what we think, because everyone thinks about these challenges, not just people who are recycling or who are running these companies. This is everyone's problem and everyone has their own creative ideas. तो जब तक हमने ओपन फोरम में इसको डिस्कस नहीं किया, लाइक आज कितने सारे लोगों ने कितने अलग अलग क्वेश्चंस पूछे, सो everyone has something to say, but sometimes we just give up कि अरे बोल के क्या फायदा है, मेरे बोलने से क्या होगा. We should just speak and share, write articles in the newspaper, wherever, so I know that we've like crossed half an hour ज़्यादा हमने कर लिया है. हर्षद, आपका टाइम ले लिया है, but thank you. It has been a great learning experience for everybody. Every moment was very insightful and I really enjoyed talking to you. Amit, we have so many other questions. I'm going to send it to Harshad in an email or a message, and then सबके message replies are based on that's what we are going to do. And I really appreciate कि आप सब लोग wait करें और आप सब लोगों ने पूरा attend किया. Thank you so much. Thank you, Harshad, for your time. Yes. And I think हम लोग ये कॉन्वर्सेशन को आगे करते जाएंगे, और आई थिंक सोल्यूशन ओरिएंटेड जो थॉट है हमारा, हमें वो ही आगे बढ़ाना है और सबको बताना है कि डिसेंट्रलाइज्ड इज द वे फॉरवर्ड, देयर इज नो अदर वे. And how can you utilize your terraces as for composting, not just for beauty, like walks and all that stuff. So I think हम एक और बार उसका सेशन करेंगे कि how to convert your terrace into that composting heaven, जहाँ पे no smell, all organics and achievable. जो हम बोलते हैं ना कि नहीं ये तो नहीं हो सकता, जरूर हो सकता है. Do you have anything to say before we say bye to everybody who may have like कैसे होगा, I'm frustrated, I'm angry? Harshad?
Well, thank you, Anuja. If there are more people like you around, हो सकता है जरूर. And बहुत सारी चीजें नहीं होने वाली थी यार. Many things weren't supposed to happen. Women weren't supposed to vote. The Dalits weren't supposed to have freedom. India wasn't supposed to have freedom. There are many things that weren't supposed to happen, and they happen because people fight, they recognize, they acknowledge, they empathize, they take action, they come together, they mobilize, organize, and do things. So things happen, they take time. You can do what you can for yourself and for those around you. I suppose those are the two things that one should focus on. Have empathy, take action. And if you be willing to change your mind. Like I said, I was something else 20 years ago. My mind has completely changed about who and what I am. So be open to being challenged for the ideas that you have about waste because about the environment, so on and so forth. It's okay, things happen, but you have to work.
Thank you so much. I hope everybody is on My Waste, My Responsibility group. And if you're not, I don't know how you'll get that link, but thank you, Harshad, for sharing number. Santosh, would you be able to, or anybody from the group, Preeta, anyone, if you can share the link, Avni, then they can join the group. जिनको join करना है My Waste, My Responsibility. And ये जो आज का हमने सेशन किया है, एपिसोड किया है विद हर्षद, जिन्होंने मिस कर दिया, some people said उन्होंने 40 minutes मिस कर दिया, तो हम इसका रिकॉर्डिंग शेयर करेंगे यूट्यूब पे, तब आप सब पूरा एपिसोड देख सकते हैं. एंड फिर भी आपके कुछ क्वेश्चंस हैं, so you can definitely share, and we'll have maybe another session with Harshad in a few days, जहाँ पे वो और questions बताएंगे और ideas बताएंगे how to take it forward. So thanks a lot, Harshad, and thanks everyone for asking questions and for the interaction. I think together we can and we will.
Thank you, Anuja, and thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Most welcome.